Center of Excellence in Agriculture. So teaching people entrepreneurship, using various technologies, various other things. Basically to double the foundation. The Syngenta Foundation, child. Syngenta Foundation has been given that space and to run this. Then we came in. So we have 10,000 square feet of area, classroom, office space, and there are these kind of common shared spaces. There are smaller rooms also for researchers. Time permits will show you that. And then this building, the largely it is occupied by NTTF. Now, Chilaram Group has donated some money, so second floor is being ready for us. Chilaram, it is now called Chilaram Center for Underwater. So the Wakefield Group says, we are giving you the space and you run it. They don't ask us anything. We are maintaining the space. And so NTTF runs the electronics. So this building is run by them. They have also given the initial space to a school now. It's just been constructed. It's just been constructed. So they don't get involved. They're giving us a space. They don't charge us anything. There's a 300 capacity auditorium coming up. For me, this relation is only on skilling. So other four pillars, research, innovation, academic programs, policy, I can partner with somebody else. We can work like now innovation, we are talking to them, they have a center. ये share ये backend उल्टा है. सबको बता देना, सबका check कर लेना. So,
they might have mirrored their image.
So that they have to correct it. That's odd.
What are you actually Zoom?
This is WebEx.
Oh, WebEx. I haven't seen WebEx.
WebEx allows you to have about 1,000 people.
So that's their government.
So we run it for all such events. We use WebEx. Otherwise, we use Teams. So that is the construction of the space. Five of my team members come here every day, 9 to 5. We run our office. The rest of my team is we're totally about 25 people. Most of them others work from home. Like Sridhar is from Australia. So the research team is completely online. Admin team also. There's a little outside the city. And now we are not limited by city also. I mean, Nishka, she just got married and she is now shifted to Bangalore. She was working from Delhi. She's done a mass communication from JVS. So we get good people from good institutes. A bit of freedom is important.
Flexibility is good. Yes. People tend to give more,
And then when we choose and getting the best people, and not for research fellows, largely working from the else. They have a commitment. It's more of work-based rather than time-based.
Right.
But I need to run the center, so I have a team which is operating for. We need a space. All approvals from zero and this and that comes because of I have space. That I can interchangeably use. If we have a scientific and industrial research organization, they have to show a space. So that is this. Otherwise, I don't waste money in civil infrastructure. Today, a lot of institutions are very, a lot of space. They're like opened up this space. You get some space. So we need corporate organization operate. It's much more efficient to work. Minimize so we spend more on research for the research infrastructure we spend rather than anything else. Otherwise, not only spending everything, manage also. You need a separate team to manage.
Which is not
easy.
It's not easy. It's not a concern here because they're maintaining it.
Yes.
So I guess it's time for us to start the webinar. It's 4. So I'll begin. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the participants and everyone who's joined us for a webinar to commemorate the World Oceans Day. On behalf of the Maritime Research Centre, I'm privileged to welcome you to this webinar, which is being held in commemoration of the World Oceans Day. The theme for today's webinar is Reimagine Beyond the World We Know, a new perspective based on the underwater domain awareness. So as we all know that World Oceans Day serves of the immense value that oceans brings to the humanity. And as we embrace this year's global theme, which is Reimagine, we are encouraged to rethink our relationship with the oceans and explore innovative pathways for sustainable ocean governance. Through the lens of underwater domain awareness, today's webinar aims to create a platform of dialogue, knowledge exchange, and collaborative action towards safer, secure, and more sustainable oceans. We are especially delighted to showcase the work of our UDA summer interns from the premier institute, including IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, whose research projects address some of the most pressing challenges in the underwater and maritime domains. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes for everyone. This session is being recorded. Please keep your microphones muted while the other presenter, there's a presenter or a speaker who's taken the stage. You're welcome to post your questions in the chat box. Time permitting, we will take a few questions towards the end of the webinar. Also, we are deeply honored to have with us today's exceptional panel of experts from policy, diplomacy, industry, ocean governance, and regional cooperation. And we thank each one of you for your time and insights. Also, this is the fourth or the fifth time that we are celebrating World Oceans Day. We've been very consistent with, the celebrations of this important day. Without further ado, I invite Dr. Commander Arnab Das, who's the founder and director of the Maritime Research Centre, to deliver the welcome remarks. Before Sir, speaks, I'd like to speak a little bit about him. An educator, innovator, entrepreneur, and strategist and researcher, Dr. Commander Arnab Das is a former naval officer with over 2 decades of active service. He holds a master's and PhD from IIT Delhi and has spent close to 7 years there managing research projects for Navy and the DRDO. He founded a technology-driven think tank that we call as the Maritime Research Centre today, and a startup called the Nirdhwani Technology Pvt Limited. So I welcome Sir to do the welcome remarks, and I hand it over to him.
Thank you, Nishtha. First and foremost, on this very important day, World Ocean Day, I think it's been a regular event for us where we try and showcase the work done by our interns who join us every year. And this time I'm particularly happy that the level of projects has definitely seen a different level. And thanks to the mentors now who are helping us, and these mentors are our former interns and they are our research fellows who have worked on the specific topic for at least more than a year. And we are very happy that they are covering various domains of the underwater space. Typically, our work in the underwater domain awareness looks at 3 major aspects. First and foremost is bringing the tropical characteristics. We know that the tropical regions are very different, tropical waters are very different, and somehow this important aspects get overlooked in larger technology development or even in the policy interventions. The second is the larger UDA framework which we are trying to populate. Very few people appreciate the nuances of the underwater domain, how widespread it is, how omnipresent it is. I mean, I look at all the 17 SDGs which are addressed by the UDA framework, and also being inclusive. I mean, that is comprehensive, structured, and inclusive is the term we use for describing the UDA framework that we have developed. And each of the projects that you are going to see tries to populate the multiple dimensions of the UDA framework. The third aspect is the MSP, or the digital transformation, or the digital framework, which is important for good governance. So the UDA driven MSP, marine spatial planning, is what. And when we say marine spatial planning or underwater domain awareness, we are looking at both the marine and the freshwater systems. So you will see a cross section of ideas and projects that our young interns are going to be looking at. And what I feel happy about is, I mean, you can also see I'm surrounded by the other set of interns we have from BITS Pilani, all the 3 campuses. They're also today, because there was limited time, we have only put our IIT interns forward today, and in a subsequent date, we will also look at the projects done by the BITS Pilani students. So I will hand over to Sridhar, who has been the architect of the whole MSP framework and looking at the whole tech intervention in a very serious way. So my team works on all the three aspects of policy intervention, technology intervention, and capacity and capability building. So I will hand over to Sridhar. And I want to, sorry, before that, I would like to thank the esteemed panel today who have agreed to join us today. Ambassador Anup Mudgal, sir, who's been our mentor for a long time, and sir has, I mean, he last was ambassador of India to Mauritius, so he understands small island nations, their challenges. He has been part of the Prime Minister's Blue Economic Advisory Committee. He is also part of the FICCI Blue Economy Task Force. So we are extremely grateful to sir for joining us. Admiral Ashok Kumar, a former Vice Chief of the Navy, and also the first National Maritime Security Coordinator, somebody who has been in the maritime domain and been at all levels, right from the ground level to right up to the top of policy making, strategy, and also operational dominance. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Tamori Akamatsu, Professor Tamori Akamatsu from Tokyo. Tamori was also the head of OPRI, Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasagawa Peace Foundation, a very thorough researcher. I had the privilege of working with him for a short while in a project on the freshwater dolphins. I mean, I've seen how hard researcher he is, never bothered about his comfort. And even in a January winter, he could dive into the Ganga River and collect data. And Mori now is a professor in a university. Thank you, Tom, for joining us today. And I'm also joined by two very eminent persons. Swati ma'am is here from Springer Nature. She has traveled all the way from Delhi, and also Rakesh Kumar sir from Bharat Electronics Bangalore. They've traveled all the way, and he is accompanied by his colleague Shiva sir. Thank you very much, and I will hand it over to Sridhar to take it forward.
Thank you, sir. And a very warm welcome to everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to be today being able to present what we have envisaged as the vision for marine spatial planning. So in this presentation, I will introduce what is meant by modeling and simulation-based marine spatial planning, what we are working on. It's how it is basically driving most of the projects that we will be seeing coming forward by all the interns that are working on the project, how it integrates into the broader plan of MSP for us. And I'll essentially walk you through what is already operational, where we are, and what are the different zones and what are the different achievements we want to basically look at by 2029. So before I get into what we are building, I think it's important for us to understand what we are solving for. So traditional MSP in India, and this is something that has been reported by the World Bank report as well in 2020, that any kind of existing operations that are happening that are revolving around traditional marine spatial planning, and both in India as well as globally, tends to rely on a very isolated set of data sets. So one agency maps shipping routes, another agency maps biodiversity, a third agency manages the fisheries data, and so on. And these rarely come together or speak together. So what we see as a result is a very static spatial plan that tell you where things are, but cannot tell you what happens next. And the consequences for these things are real. So two of the examples is one, recently in Tamil Nadu, sea walls were essentially installed to prevent coastal local erosion. But without modeling how sediment flows change seasonally, the erosion simply, what was installed to curb the coastal erosion, it just simply moved the problem downstream. So adjacent fishing villages lost their beaches, the turtles that were nested in the area that got declined, and so on. Another example is also the Viringam port project that happened in Kerala, a 900 million transshipment hub that was being developed. But when it was proceeding, it did not account for how the construction would affect the local fishing communities. So by 2018, it saw a lot of mass protests and other such kind of things. So these are some of the common examples, and such kind of issues arise a lot where a simulation-based approach could have flagged these risks before the first stone was basically laid. And that's what we are aiming to achieve with our modeling and simulation-based marine spatial planning. So apart from having a traditional set, what we are bringing are two distinct approaches, a dynamism and impact modeling. So dynamism in the sense that because the traditional plans are basically snapshots, they are updated every few years or if at all. A simulation-based MSP is essentially a living system. So it ingests real-time environmental data, stakeholder input, scientific updates, all these things it will ingest real-time. And it will provide output in terms of spatial strategies continuously. So fishing zones can essentially adapt to any kind of spawning patterns. Infrastructure assessments can be reclassified after a storm changes, sediment profiles, and so on and so forth. The second part is the impact modeling, where instead of just drawing boundaries based on what the current data alone is, the simulation lets you forecast what happens if you take a specific action. So what does a new shipping lane do to any kind of underwater noise in a whale habitat? What does a port expansion do to sediment flow to a nearby coral reef? And so on and so forth. So you can test these scenarios computationally before committing resources or triggering any irreversible ecological change that will be going forward. So together, these are the two main components that move our MSP from being a very descriptive tool, like here is a map and uh, this is the output, to more of a predictive decision support tool. So what are the given options under the different routes or under the different expansions that are being made, and so on. So the architecture of the marine spatial planning essentially involves, so there are 4 or 5 different layers that we are working with. One is at the top, we have a diverse set of data streams. These are diverse in the sense they come from various different backgrounds. So oceanographic data, ecological data, vessel traffic, human activity patterns, infrastructure data. All of these feed into a simulation engine. So these essentially include, these simulation engines would be a hydrodynamic model for currents and storm surges, or an agent-based model that simulate how fishing vessels and marine mammals interact in shared space, climate projection models, and so on and so forth. And so after the data feeds into the simulation output then feeds into an impact analysis layer. So this is where the platform answers questions like what happens to the reef if we reroute the shipping from here to to a different place, or how does the coastline essentially will look like under half a meter of sea level rise, and so on and so forth. And throughout this process, we are having community engagement and stakeholder consultation across in every single part of the pipeline, because we understand that they are the ones who are the first responders, and they are the ones who are the first people who get impacted in any kind of disasters. Now, the vision that we have for MSP by 2029 is to essentially integrate these 6 different initiatives or these 6 different streams. Again, I'll expand a bit more on what each of these essentially mean, but the marine diversity and habitat suitability stream, then the underwater noise mapping, coastal and riverine flood risk mapping, coral bleaching and risk forecasting, oil spill drift simulation pipeline, blue carbon ecosystem health. So these are the 6 different initiatives that we are planning. This is what we bring forward to you. In terms of underwater noise, so expanding a bit on each of them. In terms of underwater noise, we have the most of the ambient noise in the ocean are driven by 3 different streams: the wind-driven noise, the rain noise, and the shipping noise. That's what constitutes to what the baseline noise level of the ocean is. So we essentially model these natural and anthropogenic noise sources, perform propagation corrections wherever required. And as a result, what you essentially see is a platform of cumulative acoustic stress map, so acoustic noise map that is present in the region. So this moves from a traditional MSP in the sense that instead of focusing on just where the ships are present, we are essentially simulating what is the individual noise that is coming out of the ship and what is the overall noise in the region that is being constituted by the ships and the movement of the ships. So that's where the modeling and simulation aspect comes into picture. The same goes for the second part of coastal and riverine flood risk assessment. So the compounded flood problem. So there are 2 distinct flooding mechanisms that happen quite frequently. One is the rivers overflowing from any kind of upstream rainfall that happens, and any kind of storm surging that is pushes seawater inwards during cyclone. And when they coincide, that is what ends up to be the most worst hit of any kind of natural disaster. So because of this, we are building separate modules. So one is essentially for coastal surge modeling, one is for the riverine flood modeling, and then combining them using joint probability analysis. So that we can see that if there is any given sea level rise under, let's say, 2050, so what does the same cyclone and what kind of impact will it look like in 2050 or any other date or any other time frame for that matter. So that's where we're bringing simulation into the picture. So, and all of this, we have enough information to validate against any kind of documented historical events, right? So whatever models we are building, we are validating against the reconstructed cyclone Amphan or cyclone Sidr or any other such kind of cyclones that have occurred to which we have the data of. The third initiative focuses on the coral bleaching and risk forecasting because bleaching occurs any kind when sea surface temperature exceed the local historical maximum that is present in the region. But temperature, and so far temperature has been used quite extensively as a aspect of identification of coral bleaching. But temperature alone usually over predicts where the corals have adapted, and it also sometimes under predicts where there are other stressors that are present apart from just the thermal stress. So we have stresses like the acidification, turbidity, the kind amount of nutrient concentration in the region. All of these are what essentially help identify the coral reef bleaching risk. So essentially building up a model on top of the same so that what we can essentially identify is that what are the different coral reef zones where thermal refugia is essentially present. They are cooler than their neighborhood. What are the high priority conservation candidates when it comes to coral reefs? So those kind of questions are things that can be answered using this. The fourth being oil spill and drift simulation. So the core framework with using any kind of open drift simulation modeling that we have, we grab open source. Again, all of these projects are mostly done using open source data wherever feasible. And of course, with the ability to purchase data from other vendors wherever required, let's say for AIS and other such kind of places. But identifying the presence of oil spill, but more importantly, how that oil spill is going to drift in different locations is what we aim to do with this particular project per se. The blue carbon ecosystem health. So we have mangrove, seagrass, salt marshes. So these are the most carbon dense ecosystems that we have in Earth that is present. And mostly 40% of the global mangrove extent is situated inside the Indian Ocean region. So we need to be able to identify what is the existing strength of mangroves, what is the existing strength of seagrass. And again, this cannot be just based upon the data that we see in terms of availability, but also in terms of the factors. What are the existing factors that affect mangroves and how those factors have influenced the existing regions where mangroves have been present? What is the outlook 10 years down the line? So again, sustainability from a future point of view. And the last one being marine biodiversity and habitat suitability. Again, we have all of this information that we're building. What we also need to understand is instead of where the whales and sea turtles are present, we want to identify the habitat in which they usually reside in. So that basically depends upon the food that they need, the chlorophyll concentration, which is what derives that, and so on and so forth. So we model the migratory pattern, we model the habitat of these whales and dolphins instead of presenting just what has been the last cited areas of these marine mammals. So all of this is what brings as the power for modeling and simulation based framework. So far, we established this work in 2025. So far, we have completed 4 different aspects of it. The SRN mapping is live today, where it, as I mentioned, it identifies the existing noise of each ship, also how much it contributes to the overall noise level in the region, so the base noise in the region. Acoustic habitat mapping for sea turtles and whales. Fishing zone mapping, identifying what are the different potential fishing zone across different dates in the Iowa region. And the beauty of the marine spatial planning is not just about bringing all the dimensions together, but essentially it's also about how each of the dimensions feeds into each other. So if I have a module of underwater noise mapping, it essentially feeds into the coral bleaching and risk forecasting to be able to identify how the noise compounds the overall bleaching risk, how the noise essentially have it. Because again, for marine biodiversity mapping, we need to understand which of these are overlapping on top of the extreme noise level in the region. So again, the noise URN mapping module then provides input to the marine diversity and habitat suitability, and so on and so forth. So we have many such kind of mappings that essentially occurs throughout different modules in order to understand what are the different impacts that exist. And this matters this matters globally, but it matters more for India because of one, extreme variability. Now, India's coastline faces some of the highest climate and human activity that we have seen. Any kind of static plan that we draw in January is already outdated by June. Second, the resource constraints. Again, to achieve a similar kind of an outcome, we would be having to put a lot of sensors everywhere, and we cannot have the capacity. We do not have the capacity to perform blanket deployment of sensors across the ocean to perform monitoring. So modeling and simulation provides a more feasible route for us as a given solution. The third being data fragmentation. Again, data exists by across different government bodies, agencies, but bringing it all together in a single place allows the bodies to work together and move forth as one unified system. So that's what we plan to build. This is what we have as a vision for what MSP is supposed to yield in 2029. And most of the projects that you will see coming forth will be introductory works that are contributing towards this broader 2029 vision of MSP that we have. I will stop here, and I will also take this opportunity Right. I would also like to take this opportunity to present and launch the Underwater Domain Awareness Journal. I'm extremely honored to do so, given the fact that we've spent a lot of efforts trying to establish a journal that focuses on scientific and research articles that are based on the underwater domain, with an esteemed set of panels of advisory board and review board that we have. Our journal focuses on 3 different categories of technology intervention, policy intervention, and capacity building. Um, this journal essentially is set with the focus areas of maritime security, blue economy, marine science, and cultural heritage. Our head of research, Catherine George, is the chief editor of this journal that we are establishing. So far, we have already released the first publication. We take this opportunity to present the same today. We have roughly 9 articles that are present. The first publication that is presented in UDA journal is open access to everyone. Each of these articles has been vetted again by our editorial board. And everyone is able to access these articles as a contribution of the first initiative that we are launching. We do accept articles across different domains, and this is our way of providing back to the community in terms of a more scientific, and apart from the existing UDA digestion knowledge center platform that we have, UDA journal allows us to enter the mainstream with a more scientific and nuanced articles that we publish. This initiative has mostly been driven by, as I mentioned, the editor-in-chief, Catherine George. We also have Calistine Lewis, who worked along in the research team along with this. All the fellows, all the engineers are the ones who have put up this platform together. So it gives us a lot of pleasure to bring this to you in this given date and time. With that, I'll wrap up my presentation. Thank you, everyone. Nishtha, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sridhar, for your presentation on the project overview, plus the vision that we have for the launch of UDA Journal. It's a new platform, and like Sridhar also mentioned that we are very happy and we are delighted to launch it on the very special occasion of World Oceans Day. With this, I would like to move on to the next segment, which is we now begin our student presentation session. Our first thematic group focuses on marine spatial planning, which is an essential component for sustainable ocean governance and resource management. And the mentor for the students who are working on this project is Sridhar himself. So first, I'd like to call Devraj Karan Singh from IIT Madras to take up the stage and present his project work.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. So I am Devraj Singh. I am BTech third year aerospace engineering student at IIT Madras. So my project is riverine flood module for tropical major basins, where we are supposed to make a flood hazard assessment framework. We'll be focusing on the 5 deltas in the tropical region. That is GBM, Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna Delta. The other is Krishna, Godavari, Mahanadi, Mahanadi and Irrawaddy. So these deltas receive intense amount of monsoon rainfall, especially in the months of July and August. That can cause a high level of water discharge that can affect the dense population that lives in the low-lying areas. So despite their importance, many of the tropical river systems have been less studied when it compared to the temperate river systems. So the question that we'll be trying to answer is how often do these deltas flood, and what is the depth and the extent of the flooding? So to model a flood, we need to model a flood, we need 3 parameters. The first one is the elevation of the land and its slope. Second is the water column that is present over it. And third is the water discharge. We have global data sets available that can provide us with that. After that, we have two options. First, we can go with the physics-based approach, which is like, for example, list flood, in which we'll apply some physics-based equations like inertial equations and computational fluid dynamic equations, discrete equation that can help us to model the flood simulation. The other one is the data-driven approach where we'll use the machine learning techniques to train our dataset on many deltas and then get our results. So what the novelty of this work is that there are many studies that are available for the temperate region. For example, there's a LSTM study in the US where where they have trained their dataset on more than 500 deltas in the US river systems. But there's not much of the study that is present on the tropical river system, which have its own very unique problems like monsoon and the climate variability. Then rather than focusing on the one river, we'll be focusing on the 5 delta systems that can help us to compare the similarities and the differences between them that can basically help us to do a comparative analysis to understand the tropical systems better. So our modeling workflow is going to be, first we'll take the 20 or 40 years of historical data to get the frequency analysis, which basically is the probability each year, what's the probability of flooding of that particular delta. Then using our data sets, we can and the historical data set, we can get the boundary conditions. We need boundary conditions to close the system of equation that we have in our physics. And after closing the equation, we finally can get the flood simulation and we can validate it using our historical from the data we have using the historical satellite data. All right, so our stakeholder and what's exactly is the application of this project is for sure is the best application is for the disaster management authorities like NDRF, this model can help them to plan a better evacuation and prepare them for unforeseen circumstances when there's a heavy flooding, to evacuate the people from the low-lying regions where there are chances of the flood down more. Then, of course, for local communities and urban regional planners, for example, there are PWDs and all that, they need to design infrastructure near the river systems. It can help them to make better infrastructure, as infrastructure can reduce the risk of lives and properties a lot. Next is the agriculture sector, as there are many farming sector that is depend on these irrigation from these rivers. So the flooding can destroy the crops. For example, it can uproot the crops, or it can prevent the oxygen from reaching the roots. It can suffocate the plants. So that can cause the mass crop destruction. So, but having this model, the farmers might be able to prepare better. Next one, these rivers receive most of their water from glaciers that are present upstreams. So their discharge, when we have the data set of their discharge rate, we might be able to predict what are the melting condition of the glacier. So it might help the climate change adaptation as agencies to manage the climate change. All right, so to conclude, I would just like to say that our long-term goal is to contribute to a validated river flood module that can take care of the conditions that are localized and that are unique to the major tropical river systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Devraj. Now we have Mahasvi Gani Pisetti from IIT Bombay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mahasvi Gansetti, a second year CSE undergraduate at IIT Bombay, and I'm currently working on this project under the guidance of mentor Sridhar. Today, I'll be presenting my work on coral reef bleaching risk modeling, focusing on the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Coral reefs are often referred to as the underwater gardens. Just a second, sorry. Yes. Beyond their ecological importance, they support a large fraction of marine life by providing habitat, shelter, breeding, and many more. As a result, the condition of coral reefs is closely linked to the condition of the surrounding marine systems. When reefs undergo bleaching, the effects are not restricted to the corals themselves. Habitat quality begins to decline, which can influence biodiversity, fisheries, and other ecosystem services too. Several large-scale bleaching events, including those happened in India during 1998 and 2016, demonstrated these impacts. These events highlighted the need to continuously assess reef condition rather than relying solely on occasional field observations. As a result, many organizations and several reef monitoring programs now continuously keep track of reef health and bleaching activity. However, the importance of reef status information extends beyond reef monitoring itself. Since many marine species depend directly or indirectly on reef habitats, researchers studying fisheries, biodiversity, ecosystem dynamics, and conservation frequently rely on information about reef condition to better understand the systems they are investigating. Therefore, improving our ability to predict bleaching risk can provide more reliable reef status information for monitoring programs as well as researchers working on marine ecosystem. Several bleaching risk models already exist and many of them achieve reasonably good performance. Therefore, the objective of my work is not simply to build another prediction model. Instead, I'm interested in investigating a few questions that remain less explored. My first question is whether whether beyond the commonly used thermal stress indicators, can we use oceanographic variables providing meaningful additional predictive information? Existing approaches rely heavily on FST and DHW. I would like to examine whether incorporating factors such as pH, chlorophyll concentration, turbidity, salinity, and other variables leads to a significant improvement in predictive performance. The second question concerns a regional variability. The Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal are environmentally distinct systems. This raises the question of whether a single model can represent both regions or whether region-specific models are more effective. To investigate this, I plan to compare a unified model against separate regional models and evaluate their respective performances. The third question is motivated by an observation frequently reported in the literature. Reefs exposed to similar thermal stress do not always exhibit similar bleaching responses. This suggests that there may be additional location-specific characteristics influencing bleaching behavior. I would like to investigate whether such effects can be represented through a resilience-related factor and whether incorporating this information improves predictive capability. To address these questions, first conducted a literature survey to identify environmental variables that have been associated with bleaching. Based on this review, I selected factors such as pH, chlorophyll concentration, turbidity, salinity, SST, and DHW. Currently, I'm in the data collection stage. Data are being gathered from sources such as NOAA and other environmental databases. To conclude, coral reefs are not only important ecological systems, but also a critical source of information for researchers, monitoring agencies, and conservation programs. Through this work, I aim not only to improve bleaching risk prediction for the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, but also to better understand the environmental, regional, and related factors that influence coral bleaching. Thank you.
Thanks, Svi. Now we have Prem Kumar Narayan Tambekar from IIT Delhi who will make the presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Prem Kumar Tambekar from IIT Delhi, pursuing civil engineering. I am presenting my project, Passive Sonar Detection and Classification System. Passive sonar is a mature technology. Hydrophones listens to underwater environment. Over past 2 decades, the world has deployed a lot of hydrophones. Defense Network, ocean observatories like NOAA, and others together produce terabytes of unlabeled acoustic data every day. But sensing has outpaced the interpretation. Distinguishing what is in those recordings is not doable by human analysts in most operational systems at large scale. Machine learning has matured rapidly in the field since 2020 and promises to close that gap. Published literature reports 95 to 99% of classification accuracy on benchmark dataset. But the same systems are when same systems are deployed on the new hydrophones in new location, performance drops by 15 to 25 percentage points. Benchmark numbers do not reflect the operational reality. My project addresses this gap with the machine learning pipeline that classifies underwater acoustic sources into 4 categories using two-stage architecture. A binary detector first decides whether anything non-ambient is present, and then a multi-class classifier identifies what it is. The work began with a structured literature review. The UATR field has documented 3 issues. Most published work classifies vessels only. Evaluation is mostly done on single dataset, and the common evaluation protocols leak information by splitting at a segment level rather than the recording level. For data, I have selected 5 open datasets that together cover all 4 source types, and also looking for additional dataset to add to this. Curation requires a careful normalization because each dataset uses different hydrophones and with different gains and needs to apply per source normalization first and followed by global pass. Augmentation and annotation is also required for this data. Signal processing pipeline runs on selected features from STFT, LOFA, Dreaman, Mail spectrogram, MFCCs, GFCCs, fused as channels into network input. Literature has shown that using multiple feature channels concatenated gives better results. For both stages, I am comparing different models from the literature based on the performance. Models from the different families are going to be used and compared before final selection. And next step will be evaluation of the finalized model. Most important point of this work is integration. The underwater acoustic environment is not separate platforms, but for different stakeholders. It is a one shared environment rather than each community building its own narrow monitoring stack. For maritime security, stakeholders like Indian Navy, Coast Guard, NTRO can use this for the purpose of vessel detection in IOR shipping lanes, identification of low signature emitters, and monitoring of submarine cable corridors. In context of blue economy, this can be applied for illegal fishing detection, port approach traffic characterization, and acoustic baselines for offshore infrastructure by stakeholders like Ministry of Ports and Shipping, Fisheries Survey. For marine environment and ecology, the Ministry of Environment, the Wildlife Institute, the Zoological Survey can use these techniques to get cetaceans activity maps to inform protected area designation and quantify anthropogenic noise budget. For disaster risk reduction, Indian National Center for Ocean Information Service, National Disaster Management Authority, IMD, can use these techniques to get acoustic footprint from submarine seismicity, cyclones, and tsunami precursors. This project also contributes to research and indigenous capability building. Further research can be done using IOS-specific dataset and building the physics-informed modeling and simulation layer on top of this. More critically, all 4 classified outputs fit directly into the evidence-based India needs for spatial decision across its EEZ. This pipeline produces all 4 data layers from the one sensor tree. The expected outcomes are reproducible 4-class UATR baseline accompanied by full reproducibility artifacts such as splits, checkpoints, and code with consistent cross dataset performance. For road, currently, I am on dataset curation, and then I will be training model and evaluating them. In long term, this work is to ground recognition engine in real ocean propagation physics. Connecting the engine to acoustic propagation model would let us characterize detection performance under realistic operational condition, which is the answer maritime operators actually need answered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Prem Kumar. We now have Ashish Kumar Jha from IIT Kanpur to make his presentation.
Hi everyone, I am Ashish Kumar Jha currently a third-year mechanical engineering student at IIT Kanpur, and I'm working as a research intern at Maritime Research Centre. And my project is future climate modeling and coral reef bleaching. I mean, we are specifically focusing on Indian Oceanic region. So we have seen several mass bleaching events in Indian Oceanic region, starting from 1998. Then we saw in 2010, and in 2016, there was an event of El Nino, which caused a mass bleaching in the Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar. And the most recent one is that happened in 2020, around 2023 and 24. So this frequency is getting increased, and the average time that is required by a coral reef is 3 to 5 years to get recovered. So if they are not getting the proper time to recover, so they are not getting recovered. So, and the frequency is currently increasing. So we need to look upon that. So, I mean, why this project? What is the difference between this project and the traditional method that are being used for now? So, the very first major difference is that we are not relying on the single factor, but we are trying to look for different factors that may be responsible for bleaching. And we have found some different, several factors. And through my research, I did some research and read some literature, and we got to know that there may be some impact of pH and turbidity, and there may be some impact of oceanic current at that particular region and the wind current as well. So these are some of the factors that we can incorporate while training our model to predict for our region, and that could give us a robust model rather than just relying on a single factor. So, and why it matters, because we don't have anything like this for Indian Oceanic region. So we will try to do that. So how are we going to do it? And we have, it's a 5-step starting from the data acquisition. We will acquire different data sets for different requirements. For temperature, we have NOAA data set, and for pH, we have some data set. We will be requiring some data set for turbidity as well, then oceanic current and wind current as well. After we have all of the data set, then we need to require some feature engineering. We need to get some features that can be fed into the model. So we will do some feature engineering, decide which features are useful for our project and which features we can ignore for now. So we will do some feature engineering. When we have all our features ready, we can start training our model. For model training, we will be relying on the models that are useful for handling complex data structure and large amount of data. So one of them is random forest and gradient boosting. We will try to see which of these models fits better and gives us the better result. So once our model training is ready, we will be getting some output. We will do some future projection based on the climate modeling provided by CMIP6. They provide some future modeling of the climate. That will be our input, and based upon that input, we will be predicting what are the possible timeline and the possible location for the bleaching events in the future. After we have these output, we are going to integrate into MSP toolkit. So a person looking onto it can directly see the regions that are critical, and that are which regions are critical and which regions are low, and we can ignore them. So the attention could possibly go into that regions where we need money flow and all the attention for now. So after we have done all of this, we need to decide who are the stakeholders for this. So first of all, we have some government bodies who are responsible for protection of reef ecosystem in Indian Oceanic region. So they will be directly using this project. I mean, if we achieve what we are trying to, so they are going to directly use our project, the layer that we are going to generate, and they can directly see which regions are at most risk. Then there are fisheries department. If we can bomb them at first, so they can be ready for the future events. Then there is a tourism department. They can build their infrastructure based on our prediction, and they can set their infrastructure on that location only where there is a very less chance of bleaching events. So they can save a lot of money from this. And obviously there is IPCC Indian chapter, which represents India and which is which accounts for any bleaching happening in Indian Oceanic region. So that can also raise voice for this in international bodies. So yeah, that's all about my project. We are trying to move from risk unknown to a risk map technique. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, Ashish. We now move on to the last presenter of this group, who is Pranav Ashok Mahitkar from IIT Madras.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pranav Ashok Mehta, third-year mechanical engineering student at IIT Madras. So the project that I'm working on is um, wind and rain-driven ambient noise layer. The goal of the project is to build natural acoustic baseline for the Indian Ocean region, so which will be part of a larger marine spatial planning toolkit, which is focused on underwater domain awareness. What are the gaps that we are trying to address, or what is the need for this project? So, the Indian Ocean region is one of the world's most bodies of water, yet its underwater soundscape remains poorly understood. Most regional ocean planning treats underwater noise as purely anthropogenic problem, focusing almost entirely on commercial shipping. The natural noise floor, that is the noise generated by wind-driven surface waves and rainfall, is almost entirely unmapped for this region. So one might ask why this is even important. So it is important because without this baseline, it is impossible to assess how much excess noise vessel traffic adds and where biologically sensitive quiet zone exists or how the soundscape shifts dramatically between the two monsoon seasons. So this project addresses all these issues and provide a 3D ambient layer, noise layer, with a 12-month climatology delivered as separate wind and rain segments, and which will be then integrated into the MSP tool. The stakeholders and beneficiaries. So who will be benefited from this project? So the answer to this is every actor responsible in the governance of the Indian Ocean. So like naval and defense forces. So it will provide them a scientifically validated natural acoustic reference layer essential for submarine operations, mine countermeasures, and maritime domain awareness activities in IOR. Hydrographic organizations. So it will help them for sea state forecasting, ocean climate products, and navigational safety assessment. Conservational bodies and e-NGOs can use this as a tool to identify seasonally shifting acoustic quiet zones, which are critical for noise-sensitive marine species, including baleen whales and dolphins. Marine spatial planners can use it as a plug-and-play ambient noise layer for the MSP toolkit. Scientific and research community can use the validated 12-month climatology for various research purposes. And this also enables shipping operators and port authorities to understand the natural acoustic variability of the IOR waters across monsoon season, supporting quieter routing choices and voluntary speed reduction programs. So what makes this project stand apart? So what's the unique contribution? So the first one is, it is the first IOR specific natural noise baseline. Second is dual source separation, which means wind and rain are modeled independently, allowing users to isolate and analyze each source separately. Third is monsoon-aware seasonal climatology. The 12-month climatology is specifically designed to capture dramatic acoustic shift between the southwest and the northeast monsoon season. The fourth is it is validated against real hydrophone data. And the fifth is it is a plug-and-play integration into the MSP toolkit. Methodology. What are the steps that we are going to take in order to complete this project? So the step one is a thorough literature review. Going through the foundational works of scientists like Vance, Newston, Hildebrand, etc., in order to acquire knowledge which will be required for this project. Second step will be multi-data set acquisition. So we'll require weather data like speed of wind, precipitation rate, temperature and salinity profile, bathymetry, etc. Third will be spatio-temporal alignment. So we'll interpolate all data sets to a common master grid, which will allow us to compute sound speed profiling. The fourth is acoustic modeling. So we'll use the Hildebrand's empirical equation for the wind layer and Newton's empirical equation for the rain layer. And fifth part is the validation part. We'll validate the output of the model with real data of the Diego Gracia's hydrophone records after applying P10 percentile filtering for stripping out the commercial shipping noise. And the final step is 12-month climatology, which will help us to capture southwest and northeast monsoon acoustic contrast. So in the conclusion, I would like to highlight that this project provides value on three different levels: ecological value, strategic value, and planning value by converting raw weather data into living acoustic map of the Indian Ocean, which will enable smarter, science-based, and sustainable ocean governance across the Iowa. That is it from my side. Thank you.
Pranav. So with this presentations of group 1, and now we move to the group 2, focusing on sediment management as the topic. Mr. Romit Kumar, a research fellow at MRC, who's also pursuing his PhD from IIT Delhi, is the mentor of this group. As the first presenter, we have Disha Gugale from IIT Bombay, who's going to make the presentation. Disha, over to you.
Yes. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Disha Gugale, a sophomore at IIT Bombay. Today, I'll be presenting my project on sediment transport modeling in the Brahmaputra River using AI-based approaches. While rivers are often viewed as systems that transport water, they also continuously transport sediment in the form of sand, silt, clay, and gravel. This sediment plays a major role in shaping river channels, influencing erosion, deposition, flooding, and the stability of nearby infrastructure. Understanding sediment movement is therefore an important challenge in both river engineering and environmental science. In this project, I focus on the Brahmaputra River, one of the most dynamic and sediment-rich river systems in the world. Now, sediment transport directly affects both river systems and the people living around them. Excessive sediment deposition can make river channels shallower, increasing flood risk. At the same time, erosion can damage agricultural land, infrastructure, and riverbank communities. For engineers, sediment transport is an important consideration in the design of bridges, embankments, and the flood protection systems. Since the Brahmaputra basin supports millions of people, understanding these processes is critical for effective river management and disaster mitigation. Now, why Brahmaputra specifically? The Brahmaputra transports roughly around 700 to 1,000 million tons of sediment every year, making it one of the most sediment-laden rivers in the world. To put this into perspective, the Mississippi River transports approximately 200 million tons, while the Nile carries around 100 million tons per year. This highlights the exceptionally high sediment load carried by Brahmaputra. Originating in the Himalayas, the river receives large amount of sediment due to steep terrain, intense rainfall, and weathering processes. A unique characteristic of Brahmaputra is that it is a braided river. Instead of flowing through a single stable channel, it continuously splits, rejoins, and changes course. This highly dynamic behavior makes sediment transport extremely difficult to predict and therefore an interesting research problem. Predicting sediment transport remains challenging because it depends on many interacting factors such as river discharge, flow velocity, rainfall, channel geometry, and sediment properties. In addition, the Brahmaputra is constantly evolving through erosion and deposition, making the system highly complex. Although many studies have used hydraulic models, numerical simulations, and machine learning techniques, most approaches require large amount of observation data. However, obtaining reliable and continuous data sets for a river system as large and dynamic as the Brahmaputra is very difficult. This creates a research gap and motivates the exploration of alternative modeling approaches that can perform effectively even under data constrained conditions. So, the objective of this project is to investigate whether AI can be used to model sediment transport under limited data availability. Traditionally, sediment transport is studied using mathematical models based on flow and sediment transport equations. For this project, the focus will be on a two-dimensional modeling framework. The model will incorporate key hydraulic parameters such as flow velocity and discharge, sediment-related parameters such as sediment concentration, and river morphology characteristics. Since high-quality data sets are limited, the proposed approach is to generate distributions of these input parameters and then train an AI model to learn the resulting sediment transport behavior. This approach may help capture complex relationships between river conditions and sediment movement while reducing dependence on extensive field observations. Through this work, I aim to improve understanding of sediment transport dynamics in the Brahmaputra River and evaluate the effectiveness of AI modeling approaches. If successful, these models could support applications in flood risk management, erosion studies, river management, and infrastructure planning. More broadly, the framework could potentially be extended to other larger river systems facing similar challenges. To conclude, the sediment transport is a critical process that influences both river systems and society. The Brahmaputra presents a particularly challenging case because of its large sediment load and dynamic nature. This project explores whether AI-based methods can help address some of the limitations of traditional approaches and contribute to a better understanding and prediction of sediment transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Disha. Now we'll have Sagar Yadav from IIT Delhi to make his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sagar. I'm pursuing BTech from Mechanical Engineering at IIT Delhi. So my topic is assessment of marine sediment bearing pressure using acoustic approach in shallow water regions. So first is, what is sediment bearing pressure? Sediment bearing pressure is the maximum contact stress the seabed can carry without catastrophic shear failure or unacceptable deformation. For the calculation of sediment bearing pressure, we have Terzaghi-Meyerhoff's basic equation. Here is a simplified 2D version form of the equation. We need some properties of the sediment, that those are cohesion factor, effective overriding pressure at foundation level, and internal pressure angle for the calculation of bearing capacity, and other physical factors of our foundation team. Next is why our sediment bearing pressure is important. So we all know there are a lot of bridge collapses occur in our country. So apart from the mechanical failure, mechanical and or material failure, main reason for the collapse is the improper or incomplete calculation of the sediment bearing pressure. Moreover, the precise calculation of sediment bearing pressure will also give avoid the catastrophic failure of offshore infrastructures, will help in the submarine pipeline and sea anchors, and is the basic requirement for amphibious and logistic operations. Next, where my project will be applicable. So basically, sediment bearing pressure is applicable in all these categories, but my project will scale up all these things. So firstly, the foundation stability. Anything we are going to make on the seabed, we need some value of the sediment bearing pressure, that how much load can it bear. For the amphibious operations of military, we need there is a heavy machinery that needs to be supported by the ground. For that, we need sediment bearing pressure. Also for the subsea mining and robotics, those crawl on the seabed. So that is the basic requirement. Moreover, by the acoustic mapping of all the Indian Ocean region, we will be able to come up with a better defense strategies for the country, in case of by knowing the all the sediment bearing pressure at all the Indian Ocean regions. Next, what is the difficulty in the tropical seabeds and temperate seabeds? So in our case, Indian Ocean region, we have tropical seabeds, where the lot of decomposition occurs in many ways. First is common rainfall or physical ones. Other one, that a lot of sediment comes from the rivers, coming from the mountains, and other human factors as well. These factors lead to highly variable sediment bearing pressure and very low pressure as well, which is quite opposite of the temperate regions or non-tropical seabeds, where the sediment bearing pressure is comparatively higher and more predictable. Next, what are the calculation steps? So basically, there are three methodologies that are used in the calculation of sediment bearing pressure. First is the physical method, where they take the sediment from the seabed and do mechanical test on them and calculate the sediment bearing pressure. Another approach is they try to model the FEM, model the sediment in the software, and then use nonlinear finite element method to calculate it. And another approach is using acoustic data from the seabed and then make their own biostole poroelastic model, which then will be used to calculate the sediment bearing pressure. So what are the current gaps? Basically, for the FEM case, we can say that it is very difficult to model all the real case scenarios, real case complex scenarios, and also it will be very computationally expensive to get precise value of this. Next, for the acoustic one biostole model, there is no proper methodology provided for the optimizing. And for the shallow tropical regions as well, there is no proper approach research on. Also, there is no current real-time acoustic data integrated in the seabeds. So what my approach will be is work on the acoustic method, where we'll define the sediment properties from the acoustic data, and then try to find some empirical or any relation, or if possible, try to use machine learning algorithms to optimize the biostole model, and then integrate the real-time bearing capacity. So how I justify is that this project will be non-destructive to the sediments, will be low cost, and will be very highly scalable over the tropical seas. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sagar. We'll have the last presentation for this group. We have Aryan Singh from IIT. We have Aryan Singh, Delhi, to make his presentation.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So I am Aryan Singh, engineering from IIT Delhi. Today we will be talking about my project where I am using satellite images to measure how much sediment is suspended in the water of Ujjain reservoir in Maharashtra. So the reservoir we are looking at is built on the Bhimapur district. It is a significantly large reservoir with the main drinking water and irrigation for cities like Solapur. Are dependent on it, track of its water quality is very. So why we are using a satellite-based approach? Because the traditional way to measure water samples, which is slow, costly, and only gives you data for a few points. And during floods, it's very dangerous to go out at all. So satellite fixes all of this. They cover the entire reservoir in one pass. They come back every 5 days. The data is free, and no one has to go anywhere. So, and we can also keep a check of the trends, historical trends of the data as well. And so satellite imagery. Here's what actually looks like. These are two images from the same reservoir. One is from the pre-monsoon period and from the post-monsoon period. We can clearly see the difference in how it looks and the change in the color as well. Change in the color demonstrates the different concentration of sediments. Talking about the stakeholders, there are quite a few groups who would benefit from this research. Water authorities, farmers, city municipalities, environmental agencies, etc. So the two groups that benefit the most are water authorities and urban municipalities. Water authorities like MWRRA that sees over the water authority of Maharashtra can use this to track sedimentation, plan operations, and make decisions during floods without needing field teams. And for municipalities in Pune and Solapur, high sediment means higher treatment costs and risks to drinking water. With satellite data, they can see a problem before it hits the treatment plant. So talking about the literature review that I had done, so a lot of on the satellite to measure sediment. Most of it exists on the national the Yangtze. So when no such study exists. So this is the one of the main reason and the motivation for this research. And talking about the unique contributions, what makes this study different is basically four things. It's focused on the Ujjaini reservoir, which has not been studied this way before. It compares multiple spectral indices to see which works best. It tests machine learning algorithms alongside traditional approaches, and workflow is designed so it can be reused for other reservoirs across India. This is the methodology that I am following, and it basically includes of 6 steps. First, the literature review, which is done. Then we collect satellite images from Sentinel-2 satellite, clean them up through pre-processing, pull out the relevant spectral features, build and test our models, and finally check how accurate they are against real field data. So yeah, this is the methodology. And so to wrap up, this project uses free satellite data and modern tools to monitor a reservoir that a lot of people depend on, and where this kind of study simply has not been done before. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Nishta, you can go ahead.
Right. Now, and we will invite a senior dignitary to offer his comment.
I think Nishta has a connectivity problem. Admiral sir, we would request you to make your comments, sir.
Admiral sir, we would request you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hope you all can hear me.
We can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Oh, great. Thanks. Okay, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here on World Oceans Day. Firstly, let me extend my big thanks to Dr. Arnab for having invited me here. Thank you so much. I must tell you that this is one of the topics which is now, in fact, has been the flavor of the season for many seasons. And so I must compliment MRC for having organized this event, firstly, and the presentations that I went through, the first two, absolutely spot on when it comes to choosing the topics. And I'm sure I would have been happier to attend the next two as well, especially the one on fisheries and aquaculture, which is the fourth one I noticed. But unfortunately, I'm rushing for another World Oceans Day seminar, which is by the GNLU. So that's again a webinar. So I just do it from here. But thank you very much for having invited me. There are different aspects of UDA. In fact, when you tell me, a naval officer who's been in the Navy for 40 years, about UDA, my mind straight away goes to a submarine, to an uncrewed underwater vehicle, and so on and so forth. The other obvious use for me is for blue economy. I mean, these two are so linked to underwater domain awareness. Now, when it comes to security, as I said, conventional threats, dime a dozen. I mean, earlier it was only a deployed submarine. And if you actually look at our region, starting from Iran to our west, to Pakistan, to India, we ourselves, to Bangladesh, to Myanmar, to Thailand, to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Singapore, everybody in this region operates a submarine. So these waters are filled with submarines. So our ability to detect them, track them, and also our ability to deploy our own submarines without the adversary or a potential adversary being able to detect him can always be a challenge. And so much depends upon our ability for comprehensive and efficient UDA. That's something that we need to keep in mind. And all these kinds of projects which are being done, whether it is acoustic signature in the area, even without anybody operating. I mean, there is this inherent noise that the sea generates. So that is so much helpful when, say, designing sonars, for instance, which goes on board ships, which goes on board submarines, or which goes on board torpedoes. In fact, designing a torpedo is as much a challenge in these waters, where the acoustic signatures can be a bit of a challenge in tropical waters. And when it comes to seabed sensors, the world during Cold War had seabed sensors all over the place. And so there is a need for us to deploy seabed sensors effectively and efficiently, so that we are ready for any action that might take place against us. Underwater cables is something that I would like to mention about. As you all are aware, the underwater, the seabed cables are the ones which carry about 98% of global communications, including financial transactions and the like. You would have read in the news as to how there was a week in which 4 of the undersea cables that connect India to Europe through the Bab el Mandeb, which goes through the Gulf of Aden, through the Red Sea and out. In fact, every cable that connects India to Europe goes through the Gulf of Aden, and 4 of them were, cut because of the Houthi threat. Some ships are dropping anchor and the likes. So these kinds of threat can always pose a huge problem. So we need to be very, very clear on our UDA, who's operating where, and what impacts our ability to operate these cables unhindered. So for this, of course, you will also find that, as you know about the UNCLOS, 12 nautical miles is our own territorial waters. Beyond that, up to 200 is our EEZ. Whereas everything that happens, whether it is the undersea cables going about, or even the ISA allotted areas, or the likes, quite often happens beyond the EEZ. So how do we handle this? This can only be handled through international collaboration. And this is a must. Alone, no country can achieve a comprehensive UDA, quite like the MDA challenge. In fact, when it comes to MDA, we have made giant strides. After our 2611 MDA, which was earlier merely a Navy-specific activity, has now become a regional activity. In fact, now a global activity. There are white shipping technical agreements signed with many countries, and they all contribute to the Information Fusion Center Indian Ocean region at Gurugram. So quite like that, there is a need for us. Of course, a lot of things are happening currently. There is a need for us to approach it very collaboratively with our partner nations. When it comes to blue economy, I mentioned about seabed minerals. This is something that when it is beyond our exclusive economic zone, the authority to allocate such areas for seabed minerals is the International Seabed Authority, the ISA. And India, as probably you're already aware, has already 3 areas allotted to it. One is a 75,000 square kilometers area, which is 2,000 kilometers south of Cape Comorin, Kanyakumari. And there is a 10,000 square kilometers area, which is about 4,000 kilometers south of Kanyakumari. One for polymetallic nodules and the other for polymetallic sulfides. We have recently been allotted another area in the southern part of Andaman Sea, Arabian Sea, which is also about 10,000 square kilometers in the Carlsberg Ridge. So when allotted, we have to have the wherewithal to ensure that research and development and finding out what can be extracted, that ability rests with us. I mean, this is something that, of course, the Ministry of Earth Sciences is responsible for it, and they do a good job of it. Now, the second is fisheries. I'm missing out the fourth one, where there is a presentation by the students on fisheries and aquaculture. Fisheries is a topic which is, very close to our heart, India's heart. Basically, because we are looking at 1 lakh crores export of fisheries. Currently, I think we are about 65,000 or so. So this is something, and sustainable fishing gets huge amount of attention in the UNCLOS. And there are also regional fisheries management organizations, whether it is the IOTC, with the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, or the COFA, which is the South Indian Ocean Fisheries Association. So these are the ones which try and ensure sustainable fishing activity. But quite often, beyond our EZ, our ability to understand what happens itself can be a bit of a challenge. So there needs to be a lot of research and development done in this sector as well. And this scientific studies that the MRC is doing it through the IITs would be hugely helpful. Oil and natural gas, as you're aware, we are wholly dependent on imports today. Look at what has happened to Strait of Hormuz. So when your 50% of your requirement of crude oil and 60% of natural gas comes through the Strait of Hormuz, there is a problem. So aren't we blessed enough to find oil and natural gas in our EZ? There is a program called the HELP, or Hydrocarbon Exploration Licensing Policy, through which there is a solid drive to identify whether in our own EZ, whether in the mainland or in the Andamans region, is a drive which is currently on. Renewable sources of energy is a must, and there again we are looking at seas for a huge amount of renewable energy to be produced. Let me try and start concluding, because I need to rush for the next one. But what do we need to focus on? There are certain suggestions that I would put across. One is centralized data repository. We quite often tend to act in silos. There are enough number of agencies, enough number of ministries in this country which have got data which is available based on research and development that have been done at sea by their respective ships. And yet, this data is not centralized. Now, quite like the Directorate or DG Hydrocarbon has done for every hydrocarbon mapping, there is a centralized repository now. We need to do that for oceans as well. Capacity building for research and development. You cannot operate with 5 or 6 or 10 ships and cover the entire area of Indian Ocean region for research and development. I am of the firm belief that the Ministry of Earth Sciences and the Ministry of Mines and the others who actually deal with the oceans need to have higher capacity, by which I mean more number of ships. We need to widen the scope of research and development, because here again it will function in penny packets. The moment you expand the scope and the area that the Indian Ocean region offers to you, I think we'll do a lot better. There is already programs by the government of India, quite like the Deep Ocean Mission you would have heard, which is sending a manned submersible to 6,000 meters, basically for mineral extraction and things like that. Well on its way, and hopefully we should see that succeed quickly. Now, finally, if I were to just make one strong suggestion, which is there is a need for organizations like the MRC, which is doing a commendable job to link up with the concerned ministries to undertake projects through these leading agencies that you're talking about they're presenting today, and the academia and the industry, which is very essential. Why I say link up with concerned ministry is that we should not end up duplicating the efforts. Quite often, one doesn't know what the other is doing. So instead of duplicate, and plus, like for example, I heard this wonderful presentation on submarine operations, the acoustics. So if you're doing that, Commander Arnab, I'm sure, can get you across to the right persons in the Navy, or through the NMSC, who is now a multi-agency coordinator at the NSCS. What does the NOTPAC of the Navy do? What does the NIOT do? What does the INCOIS at Hyderabad do? Or what does the NCPOR do? Each of them have a charter of responsibility, and they do a great job of what they're doing. But just that, you all need to be aware of what exactly are they doing, and so that it will help your project as well, and you're contributing positively to what they are doing as well. So with that, I will stop. Thank you very much, Dr. Arnab, for having invited me. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words definitely count a lot, and we have noted down everything, and we'll also share the final report of this webinar with you, and whatever you are likely to miss, you will get a video recording also of that. So thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much, and all the very best.
Thank
you. We'll get back to our presentations by group 3. So now we have the presentations focusing on biofouling management. Suchir Mamidala, who is an MRC fellow, is the one who's leading the group of interns under him, working on the biofouling management topics. First, we have Varun Malviya from IIT Kanpur, who's going to make the presentation.
Hello everyone, myself Varun Malviya, and I'm currently pursuing BTech in Material Science and Engineering from IIT Kanpur. Today I'm going to introduce you to Clean Hull RL. This is an academic research project focused on creating a deep reinforcement learning AI to improve how we schedule ship maintenance. Specifically, this AI-driven framework is designed to optimize fleet deployment in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Let's start by understanding the baseline problem. The Andaman Sea has extreme warm waters, usually 27 to 30 degrees Celsius, which are rich in nutrients. This environment causes aggressive marine biofouling, which is when sea life rapidly grows and sticks to the bottom of our ship. Now, this growth creates physical drag in the water, forcing the ship's engine to work harder and burn millions in excess fuel. Now, to make the matter worse, ships have to travel a massive 1,200-kilometer distance for maintenance. Now, to solve this, my framework focuses on 3 main opportunities. Firstly, dynamic scheduling. Instead of guessing when a ship needs cleaning based on an old fixed calendar, I've used data-driven LLM models to schedule maintenance before severe damage. Secondly, localized oceanographic data. I won't use generic global estimates. I have used actual satellite data for sea temperature and salinity to calculate the approximate fouling rates happening at each specific island. Third one is the most important one, as it is the mathematical trade-off. My system constantly balances 2 things: the compounding daily cost of wasted fuel versus the massive lump sum cost of traveling 1,200 kilometers for maintenance. Now, what are the unique contribution of this project and how am I planning to scale it forward? Firstly, I am transitioning from historical to real-time ocean data. Currently, my framework has a unique pipeline that uses historical satellite data to calculate localized hull degradation. However, the next phase is to connect this directly to live data feed. Secondly, I have created a scalable economic translation. My project uniquely translates the physical friction on a ship's hull into actual daily financial deficit. Here I have used SARU class OPV as my baseline. I have used this class as the baseline because these ships are the workhorses of ocean planning. Because they are always in the water, they are highly exposed to biofouling. This makes them the perfect real-world example to measure how much extra fuel is wasted. Moving forward, I will expand this mathematical engine to include other major vessels. Finally, strategic UDA positioning. Right now, my model maximizes the defensive coverage for Indo-Pacific choke points 365 days a year. My ultimate future goal is to integrate this entire framework as a real-time asset for India's underwater domain awareness. Now, to make this all happen, my methodology has three-phase framework. Phase one is data ingestion. I have mapped the biofouling environment by taking historical satellite data from INCOIS, including surface temperature, salinity, and chlorophyll levels. This generates specific fouling progression curves for every agent. Now, phase two is quantification. I have conducted an economic gap analysis using the fluid dynamics equation, and which allowed me to map the drag coefficient to the exact engine power required. Finally, I will calculate the fuel penalty per vessel. Now, phase three is the most important one, as it is the decision engine. I will take all this complex fleet scheduling and turn it into what's basically a high stakes turn-based board game. Every single day is a new turn. I will train an AI agent using reinforcement learning. Basically, I will allow the AI model to take turns and play to minimize the cost. At last, it will predict what we want. Basically, it will tell that the ship must hold its position, rotate with another ship, or send it in maintenance. Now, let's see who are the key beneficiaries. For fleet command, the AI agent provides uninterrupted 365-day operational readiness, securing the checkpoints in the Andaman Sea. This operation certainly translates directly into massive financial efficiency for the Ministry of Defense. On the other hand, ship repair yards can financially replace chaotic emergency dockings with predictable data-driven resource allocation. Finally, the framework aligns with Environmental Agency 2, as there is an active reduction in the Navy's carbon footprint and gain valuable data for tracking marine ecosystem health. Now, to wrap up, Clean Hull RL modernizes our fleet operations in three ways. First is automated logistics. It replaces manual gassing with smart AI-driven scheduling. Secondly is cost saving. It automatically balances fuel waste against transit costs to save money. Third is mission dominance. It ensures our ships stay in two shape and ready to defend the Andaman Sea year round. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Varun. We'll now have Lavina Goyal from IIT Kanpur, who's going to make a presentation on one of the topics related to biofouling management.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'll be presenting my project titled Biofilm Maturation and Marine Fouling Succession, exploring recruitment dynamics in tropical marine systems. Marine biofouling refers to the accumulation of microorganisms, algae, and larger organisms such as barnacles and mussels on submerged surfaces. While biofouling is often viewed as an engineering challenge, it is fundamentally a biological process. Understanding how these communities develop is important for both maritime operations and marine ecosystem management. Before discussing the biology, it is important to understand why fouling matters. Heavy fouling can increase hydrodynamic drag by up to 60%, increase fuel consumption by 15 to 40%, and significantly increase vessel operating costs. It also contributes to higher carbon emissions and facilitates the spread of invasive species. These challenges are particularly important in tropical waters where warmer temperatures and continuous biological activity accelerate fouling development. This makes understanding the early stages of fouling both economically and environmentally relevant. So the fouling process begins when a clean surface is submerged in seawater. A conditioning layer forms first, followed by microbial colonization and biofilm formation. Over time, larvae of larger organisms settle on these surfaces, eventually leading to macrofouling. During my review, I focused on three key biological processes. The first is quorum sensing, which allows bacteria to communicate and coordinate behavior. The second is EPS production, where microorganisms produce the matrix that holds the biofilm together. The third is species interactions, which include competition and cooperation among microorganisms, which influence how biofilms mature over time. Together, these processes shape the development of marine biofilms. From the literature reviewed so far, several patterns emerged. Mature biofilms generally show higher microbial density, stronger quorum sensing activity, greater EPS accumulation, and stronger larval settlement responses. I also found that tropical systems experience faster microbial growth, continuous larval availability, and accelerated succession dynamics. The most important observation was that biofilm maturity appears to influence recruitment more strongly than biofilm age alone. This suggests that two biofilms of the same age may differ significantly in their ability to attract and support larval settlement. Although biofilm formation and larval settlement have both been studied extensively, they are often investigated separately. In addition, many studies use biofilm age as an indicator of development, while the role of ecological maturity remains less understood. This led me to ask, does recruitment depend simply on biofilm age or on how biologically mature a biofilm has become? So currently, my working hypothesis is that mature biofilms form through microbial succession, quorum sensing, and EPS accumulation generate stronger settlement cues and therefore enhance larval recruitment. So the main contribution of this project is introducing biofilm maturity as a functional ecological concept rather than relying solely on biofilm age. This project also integrates microbial succession, EPS accumulation, and larval recruitment into a single conceptual framework while examining these processes from a tropical and Indian Ocean perspective. So, to conclude, this work aims to shift the focus from simply describing fouling communities to understanding the biological processes that make surfaces recruitment active and drive marine fouling succession. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lavina. We now move to a final project category, which is Fisheries and Aquaculture. And Mr. Ashwini Kumar Singh from IIT Kanpur, who's a researcher at MRC and also, a graduate from IIT Kanpur. He's the one who's mentoring the students under this project category. So I'd first call Shivam Gawande from IIT Bombay to present his work. Shivam, you're not audible if you're speaking.
Hello, am I audible right now?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. My name is Shivam Gavande, and today I'm currently second year undergraduate student in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at IIT Bombay, moving to my third year. And today I will be presenting my research internship project titled Detection and Characterization of Small Artisanal Fishing Fleets in the Indian Exclusive Economic Zone Beyond the Automotive Identification System. So, why this problem is important? So, India possesses an exclusive economic zone of approximately 2.4 million square kilometers, making maritime surveillance a significant challenge. Currently, vessel monitoring relies heavily on automatic identification system or AIS. However, most fishing fleets operating in Indian waters are small artisanal boats that do not carry AIS transponders. A result, as a result, a large number of vessels remain effectively invisible to conventional monitoring systems. This creates what is known as a dark fleet problem. The lack of visibility has several implications. It can enable illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, making fisheries management less accurate, create maritime security risk, and ultimately threaten the sustainability of marine resources. Therefore, the central opportunity in this research is to develop methods for detecting vessels that remain invisible to AIS and estimate the true scale of India's unseen fishing fleet. So, to address this problem, the project is divided into two complementary phases. The first phase is geographic case study. Here, a coastal state such as Gujarat, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, or Andhra Pradesh will be selected. AIS observed vessel activity will then be compared against fish landing statistics, fishery department records, and coast guard observations. The comparison will help estimate the size of fleet that remains unobserved through AIS. The second phase focuses on the technology assessment. Different vessel detection technologies, including synthetic apertures radar (SAR), VIRS night light sensing, optical imagery, and RF tracking, will be evaluated based on factors such as coverage, detection capability, cost, latency, and operational limitations in the Indian EEZ context. The overall goal is to recommend a multi-sensor underwater domain awareness framework suited to Indian operational conditions. Now, let me briefly explain the methodology. The first step is understanding the limitations of AIS. AIS is mandatory only for larger vessels, which means many small fishing boats are naturally absent from AIS datasets. In addition, AIS can sometimes be deliberately switched off, further reducing visibility. Previous studies by organizations such as Windward and Unseen Labs have already demonstrated a significant level of dark vessels activity around the world. To quantify this visibility gap, multiple data sources will be combined, including AIS tracks, fish landing statistics, state fishery reports, and Coast Guard or port records. For example, if fish landing data suggests that around 3,000 vessels are required to generate a certain catch volume, but AIS only detects 500 vessels, then AIS visibility would be roughly 17%, indicating a substantial dark fleet. So, a key inspiration for this works come from landmark global study titled Illuminating Dark Fishing Fleets in North Korea. In this study, researchers combined four technologies AIS, SAR, VIRS, and optical imagery to reveal fishing fleets that were completely invisible to traditional monitoring systems. The results were remarkable. Researchers identified more than 900 Chinese vessels in 2017, over 700 in 2018, and approximately 3,000 North Korean vessels operating without AIS visibility. The key lesson from this study is that no single sensor can provide complete maritime awareness. Instead, combining multiple sensing technologies can uncover large dark fleets and provide a far more accurate picture of maritime activity. This serves as a strong methodological problem for Indian EEZ as well. To conclude, the preliminary findings suggest that AIS alone cannot provide comprehensive maritime awareness in the Indian EEZ, particularly because small fishing fleets form a major surveillance blind spot. Global evidence shows that integrating AIS technologies such as SAR, VIRS, optical imagery, and RF tracking can significantly improve detection capabilities. The next step involved completing the coastal case study, quantifying the AIS visibility gap, evaluating alternative technologies, and ultimately developing actionable recommendations for a multi-sensor monitoring framework tailored to the Indian conditions. Thank you for your time.
We now have the last presenter of the day, who's Shivang Gupta from IIT Delhi.
Hello everyone, I'm Shivang Gupta, a third year undergraduate at IIT Delhi, pursuing my majors in chemical engineering. So my project is on detection of and mapping of fish farms and seaweed cultivation in Indian coastal and offshore waters using satellite imagery and remote sensing. It sits across three verticals: blue economy, marine environment, and maritime security. I'll walk you through what the problem is, why it matters, others, and how we plan to execute it. So here's the headline. India is the world's second largest aquaculture producer, right after China. More than half of all the fish produced in India comes from farming, not from wild catch. So cage culture and seafood farming are expanding rapidly under a government scheme called Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So definitely aquaculture is booming. But here's the strange part. We don't have actually a national map where all these data farms are located, not fish cages, not seaweed plots. So there's no unified data. In fact, the most recent global aquaculture map study lists India as a zero offshore mariculture. Zero. That's definitely not true. It means that India is invisible to the existing global methods. And that gap is what we are trying to fix. Why should anyone care? There are six hard reasons to follow this. First is blue economy. Second is food security. Over half of India's fish supply comes from aquaculture, and we need to know where it is growing. Third is environment. Fish farms can cause local pollution and eutrophication, and mapping them will definitely help detect ecological stress very early. Fourth is maritime safety. Putting cages and ropes are navigational hazards, so ship needs to know where they are exactly located. Fifth is climate action. And sixth is policy. Agencies like CMFRI, NFDB, Coast Guard each hold a piece of this information. Nobody has exact unified factual picture. So definitely this is the hard problem and needs to be solved. Now, another question is that if other countries have already marked this, why India hasn't done that? So there are four reasons. First is monsoon clouds. For 4 to 5 months a year, India has monsoons, and optical satellites basically cannot capture the Indian coast at all. So there's too much cloud to cover. Second is turbidity. Rivers like Ganga, Godavari, Krishna, Mahanadi dump huge amount of sediments to the sea, and the water is very muddy, which confuses optical sensors. Third is coastline geometry, and fourth is scale. India's seaweed plots are often community run, so just 1 to 5 hectares, and that's below the detection level of most of the threshold global studies. And our farms are too small to be shown on that world map. So these are the four problems we have identified. Now, what makes our project different? So there are five. First is India first. We are not adapting any of these Chinese methods or Norwegian methods. We are building our own, designed for our monsoon, our turbidity, and our frontiers. Second is monsoon resilience. We rely heavily on radar satellites, especially on Sentinel-1, which can see through clouds. So this is one of the backbone we are using as in the project. Third is lower detection threshold. Fourth is multi-year change detection. Just don't take a single snapshot. We map from 2020 till date so that we can see how our government scheme is actually playing the role on the ground. And fifth is validation through Indian agencies, not only from global statistics. We are planning to do that is to fix methodology pipeline. First is data collection. Second is pre-processing. The third is features. We compute things like NDVI for vegetation, NDWI for water, texture status levels. And this will be the fingerprint that tells us that this pixel is a farm, this is seaweed farm, this is fish farm. Fourth is detection. Fifth is pre-processing. And sixth is validation. This whole system will run on Google Earth Engine and Python. So this is definitely a free and completely reproducible output. We are not trying to cover all India at once, but we are trying to will focus on four private regions. First is Gulf of Mannar in Tamil Nadu, Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat, Chilika Lake and Andaman coastal zones. What do we actually produce at the end of this project, or we are planning to do so, is first a geospatial data set. Every fish farms and seaweed plot we detect with location and size and type. Second is a comparison with global benchmarks, showing exactly what global maps list about India. Third is an open source pipeline anyone can run, and a policy brief for CMFRI and NPEDA, which compared detected farms versus the registered ones. And the fifth one, the methodology paper documenting the whole approach will follow through. So definitely, to wrap up, the India farms its ocean, but you cannot see them. We are putting India's ocean map on this map. Definitely, thank you. These are the references we are following throughout. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shivang. With this, we conclude the presentation session by the UDA Summer Interns of 2026. And now we will move on to the experts' comments and feedback session. We already heard from Vice Admiral G. Ashok Kumar, who's a former Vice Chief of Staff of the Indian Navy and the former National Maritime Security Coordinator of India. And we'd like to thank him for his insightful address. I now invite Ms. Swati Meharishi to take the stage and share her comments and feedback. So a little bit about Ms. Meharishi. She's the editorial director of Asia Pacific Engineering and Applied Sciences books program at Springer Nature. She has extensive experience in academic publishing and has worked closely with researchers, institutions, and thought leaders across the region to promote high quality scientific communication and knowledge dissemination. So thank you for joining us, Ms. Swati.
Thank you, Nishtha, and thanks to Dr. Das for inviting me. It's very nice to be here and to see all the young minds who are working on underwater domain awareness. It's a very, very important aspect of all of the SDGs, like Dr. Das said when we started. And I think it's really important. The work that you guys are doing is really important. Even those of you who are only here for 8 weeks for your summer internship, I think it's much more valuable to contribute to something like this than spend your 8 weeks in a corporate office bringing coffee. Right. So kudos to you guys for selecting to do a scientific internship rather than a corporate one. It's really good. I also wanted to, tell you guys that I have a very strong relationship to BITS Pilani. Your vice chancellor is my author and a very good friend of mine. So it's good to see people from BITS Pilani. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what we are doing in terms of the SDGs and specifically in terms of underwater content globally, and why it is important for us to have this partnership with MRC about a book series for underwater domain awareness. We have a very extensive program for the Sustainable Development Goals across the board, and all of the underwater elements are part of it, specifically for goals on food, goals on life underwater, and also goals on economic equity, because one of the things that we often forget when we talk about underwater domain awareness is that it's not only about under the water, but what is under the water actually contributes to the economy and the health of the region around it, right? We already heard from Vice Admiral from the Navy about the importance of underwater domain for security and sustainability of the nation as a whole. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. I am rather going to focus on a couple of things that I wanted to point out to the students who were presenting. I noted down a couple of things that might help you if you guys continue to work on these projects. The first one was I think it was the very first presentation on the deltas. Yeah. There was one element which I found was missing in your modeling. I'm not sure if you've already taken that into account, which is the structure and the composition of the soil and the bedrock. Yeah, those are very important parameters for measuring long-term impacts of floods. So you're not only modeling how far the flood will go in and how deep it will be, but also how long it will last and what kind of an impact it will leave after the flood recedes. So if you're not already considering these parameters, I would really recommend looking into that. And then again, one of the things that stuck out to me was the dark fishing components that one of the last presenters was talking about. In that also, I wanted to make a recommendation that there is some work already going on looking and identifying, dark fishing networks or just, individual boats that are not registered to get a more clear picture in some parts of the world using satellite data, satellite imagery. Now with large language models and machine learning, you can actually feed multiple satellite images into the model, and it can predict quite accurately what kind of dark fishing data you are missing from the recorded data you already have. Okay. That said, I wanted to also thank Dr. Das for actually connecting with us and talking about it. We've been talking for over a year now, I think. And we started talking about one book on MSP, which is almost complete and will be out into production soon. And then it evolved into doing a whole series on the work that MRC is doing, that the mentors and also the fellows are putting together, and also what some of you guys would be contributing to. So great job there. So you get an internship and you might get a book chapter out of it as well. So that's something that's really, really commendable that Dr. Das is doing here, focusing on developing the next generation of researchers and entrepreneurs that will work in, maritime and underwater awareness. I don't think that there is any other singular body looking at all aspects of underwater domain in India, and there are very few of them. Okay. And there are very few of them globally as well. So I think it's a great initiative that you're working on here, and it's a great project that you all are contributing to. And I look forward to actually doing an event where we launch the first book published under the series, like we signed our series letter of intent today. And I wanted to congratulate Dr. Das and everyone associated with MRC, and especially all of the students who presented today. You've done a fantastic job, and I think you should continue to work in this domain, and I hope you continue to be associated with MRC so we get to publish more of your content. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. It's really, I'm grateful to you for traveling down to Pune and be with us on this day. And we definitely take note of the points that you have made, and we'll definitely incorporate everything that you've said and consider them very seriously. I really appreciate your comments, and thank you so much. Nishtha, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ms. Swati, for joining us at our UDA Center and for sharing with us your insights and details of the work, that the organization has been doing on underwater domain. And of course, like for your kind feedback and recommendations. We are very happy with the letter of intent that has been signed between MRC and Sprint Journey to that effect. So thanks once again. It is now my privilege to invite Professor Tomonari Akamatsu, who's a senior researcher and a professor at Waseda University, Japan. Professor Akamatsu is also the former director of OPRI, Sasakawa Peace Foundation in Japan. So I'd like to call him for his kind remarks and, to share his experience of attending this webinar.
Okay. Thank you so much, and that's a really nice opportunity to give me opportunity to give a talk. And Anlap, will you wish to say something? Or
No,
can I
please
start?
go ahead, Tom. All yours. Thank you so much.
Okay, great, great, great. Yeah, it's really surprised the lots of cutting edge presentation happening. It's previous half an hour. So I really appreciate about that. And now we are sharing the same issues in the ocean, and we are also sharing the same direction in the ocean. I also can confirm about that, no matter what country. So today I really wish to introduce something like a noise issue in the ocean. So let me share some screen. Okay. Yep. Just a moment. Okay. Oh no, this is not. Okay, let me try again. Are you? Oh. Okay, here it is. Something wrong. I'm sorry about that. Why it doesn't work well? Okay, here we are. So I think now you're looking at a windmill with a blue sky, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, great. So let me talk about something about like a ocean noise issue these days. And my name is Toma Akamatsu from Japan, and really thank you so much for inviting me. And these days, the ocean noise is one of the big issue. And today is the World Oceans Day, and this issue is getting kind of global one, not only for the maritime, but also like a renewable energy and also like a deep water mining. Deep water mining is also going to be a very much big industry sectors, and definitely military and also the explosive during the Second World War and the global warming. A lot of issues they happening, and that's most of the issues. The noise related to that, and not only for like a domestic, but also international organizations such as the UN or IMO, International Maritime Organization, or Conservation of Biodiversity. These are already aware about this kind of issue. And previously, it was mostly focused on maritime, is the noise generated by the shipping, but also these days it's going to be much more different sound sources, such as air gun or like explosive or like underwater vehicle, AUV, blah blah blah. And the international movement is still behind of that. International Standard Organization, ISO, published the how to measure the shipping noise in these 10 years. Takes a long, long time. And ISO 17208-123. That is the way of the methodology to measure the shipping noise. But for the other sources, we are still discussing and behind of the publication. And as you know, many of the anthropogenic noise exist, but most of them, most major and many sources is definitely maritime. And what is the effect of the source, noise source, is from severe one to the mild one. The most severe one is kind of lethal effect. It's like a detonation, and it's actually kill the marine creatures. And what we surprised was they already published about 10 years ago, the big explosive by air gun that's killed the zooplankton. No, zooplankton does not have an ear, but the shock wave killed that zooplankton. And physiological effect also observed. Like inner ear hair cell was destroyed for the cattlefish. And behavior reactions that also are reported in many species, like baleen whale. This is the case of the humpback whale, the stopping of the singing during the breeding season. So it is why, because of the frequency range generated by the anthropogenic noise source, is quite best fit for the best audible range of the many of the marine taxa, including fish, baleen whale, and also cephalopod as well. So this is the issue. So how we can do that? Looking at the European case, they were establishing the marine spatial planning, and that is necessary. The European country have long discussion, negotiation, and they established this kind of the marine spatial planning already. They established something like an energy island only for use for like renewable energy and the shipping route and the conservation area. So this is really simple, easy to understand, but it may not be feasible or applicable in the Asian water. Let me try this. Yeah. Here's the picture of Tokyo Bay. Here is the offshore windmill farm planned area and also the major industrial port. And we also have the ecological or biological significant maritime marine area, EBSA, in the yellow one. And fishing ground, offshore fishing ground in the coastal water, and the protected animal, the Finnish populated habitat, is in red. So, how we can do that is most of the area was used not only for the human, but also the fishermen, but also the protected animals. So how we can establish marine spatial planning on that issue. There is the one good thing for the ocean, because for the other marine pollutant, like a plastic or carbon dioxide, it's accumulated in the globe. But for the case of noise, once we stop at the source, then unlike the chemical substance, the noise is going to be diminishing. So noise control could be much easier than the global pollutant, what I think. So how can we do this effectively with less costly? Another thing we need to think about as the effect of noise is a background noise level. From the very calm water to the very rough water, the underwater noise is really variable. So the Japanese government measured the underwater background noise, ambient noise, in 10 sites in the coastal area in Japan. And what they got was the low frequency noise is really high in winter time. And some of the red mark is the high intensity in the summertime, but generally mostly noisy in wintertime. It is because of the monsoon coming from Siberia. So such kind of the seasonal change of the underwater background noise is quite important. It is because if the background noise is high, then the sound generated from the ship does not travel long distance because of the masked by noise. So let me exercise something that kind of brain exercise. Okay, it's the conflict between the wind farm developer and the fisherman. Okay, the wind farm developer wish to deploy the windmill in offshore, but the fishermen worry about, that's kind of windmill may produce sound and the water, and the fisherman likes to catch like a tuna. It's really expensive. Even like a highest price of one tuna is cost about a Mercedes spent. So it's a big conflict. So how we can mitigate or how we can shake hands between the developer and fishermen. So here's like a scenario planning process to step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Assuming the we have kind of basic information already got. Yeah. And what kind of basic information is that? It's the sound source pressure level. And operating some windmill source level is 148.8 decibel reference 1 micropascal. So we can use it. We also knew the background noise level in the summertime, in the wintertime, in the Hokkaido area. That is also the tuna fishing ground. And as you see, the 15 dB difference between the wintertime and the summertime background noise, which means, in the October to December, the tuna fishing season, in the wintertime, that's really noisy. So effective distance should be quite short. And the mitigation route of the tuna, migration route of tuna may not be changed. But for the autumn scenario, the effective distance can be long. So monitoring is needed and mitigation measures may be required. So this is just a thinking experiment. But what we should do is a measurement of the ambient noise during October to December. That is a lack of data. Okay, that's clearly we need it. Then determine the noise exposure threshold for the tuna migration route. And hopefully we should know the critical ratio of the kind of masking effect of each tuna. And to discuss among the stakeholders and to define acceptable period of the exposure level. Acceptable means the acceptable by the many stakeholders, not by the developer, not by the fishermen. That need discussion. So this is not a science, this is agreement by the social system. And let me introduce one conference held in 2 weeks ago in Spain, and the name of the Ocean Noise Conference, and for the sustainable use of the ocean. And today is just the World Ocean Days. This conference declared the call for immediate action on ocean noise. For the detail, you can scan this QR code, but there's 4 contents. And one content is the make ecological impact assessment mandatory from the earliest stage of development, especially for the deep water mining, for 5,000-meter deep water mining. But that will be a big industry in very near future. So we need to care about that. And now, as you know, the sound is essential ocean variables defined by the GOOS. And the second one is the apply precaution to emerging ocean technology. It's not only for the deep sea water mining, but offshore floating type windmill that might be needed for precaution. So the scenario planning I've introduced is one of the kind of exercise for the precaution. If we do the precaution too much, we cannot do anything in the ocean. So not just a precaution, but also searching or finding a mitigation way for the coexistence between the anthropogenic activity and also the coexistence of the healthy ecosystem. The third one is protect the full spectrum marine life and ecosystem processing. By far, especially European country, only focusing on harbor purposes, dolphins and whales, but for the Asian water, it's much biodiverse. So not only for the cetaceans, but also the fish or crustaceans or octopus, and many guides could be affected by the noise. One of the good examples provided by Australia, the settlement of the crustacean like prawn and lobster, listen to underwater sound in the coastal water and define or determine where they will be settled. So the migration and the reproduction of the crustacean may be strongly affected by the coastal biological noise. So the last one, the fourth, recognize sound as a fundamental component of ocean health. So that is the things we need to care about in these days, the ocean noise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate your comments and a detailed presentation on noise. I still remember we met 20 years back on the Ganga River, and we worked on the freshwater dolphins. So really appreciate this association continuing, and we'll keep you updated on all our work, and we'll look for.
Yeah, very much happy to keep in touch. And also not only for the river, but also the ocean. The noise issue is getting global.
Thank you
so,
much.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Back to you, Nishta.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Tom, for your presentation and for your kind remarks. We'll now move on to our next speaker. We have with us Mr. Rakesh Kumar, who's the General Manager at Bharat Electronics, to share his comments for today's session.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks to MRC, thanks to Dr. Arnab for having us here for this session. It was truly enlightening session for us, where we from the industry, especially from the defense, where the underwater domain awareness or underwater domain technology were limited to the submarines and on the surface ships. Whatever the sensors that we used to have on onboard platforms sensing, that was limited to that. But one very important thing which has come up in probably last 1 or 2 years, where the government has now identified the blue economy. So blue economy is going to be a big game changer in coming future. And in fact, from the perspective of the country defense, one is the space domain, like from space, how we are going to surveil our country, see that what is happening around in our country, within the countries which are in the neighborhoods of our country, what is happening in their areas through the satellite imagery and many kind of sensors which are going to be there. Now tomorrow, even the warfares and missile trackings and everything will going to happen through the satellite imagery. So, and both the domain, coming to the underwater awareness domain, UDA, or from the space. Humanly, it is not possible to go there. So you have to do all kind of intelligence gathering only through the sensors mounted on a kind of platforms which is keep on moving, and through that you are getting the data. The maneuvering of that platform which is going to take all sensing data and other things, that also need to be, for its maneuvering itself, you need a autonomous systems which will be built on artificial intelligence, and it is indeed built on artificial intelligence. And underwater domain again, all kind of sensors which are going to be built onto the platforms, onto the sonobuoys, or onto the bed of the sea to monitor all kind of traffic which is going underwater. Again, it will be interconnecting of those sensors with a high-speed communication link, and a lot of AI into it. Right. Personally, our presence during this entire presentation, it was a wonderful learning experience for us, seeing that youngsters, those who are working on a key technologies based on AI/ML layer, getting the data which is basically the satellite data, having spectral, hyperspectral images, and then putting the algos, training the models, and getting some sense out of those data imagery to see how we can further increase our awareness on the underwater. And then good thing is that when we talk about the underwater, we are not talking only about the marine, we are also talking about the sweet water, and in which there is the government has come up with a number of schemes where they want to decrease the load of the traffic on the land to the waterways, which is really very good. And from the economy exploitation point of view, for the industries and for the researchers also, this is going to be a very interesting example. We just started the journey. We have got very little knowledge about the underwater domain awareness. Lot many things need to be done, and I'm sure the way the energy I have seen among young researchers with whom we are now sitting today, probably 5 years down the line will be in a much better position about the UDA. And lot many things we need to do. We from the industry are always there to come up along with that academia, the researchers, I mean, standing behind them, giving all kind of supports. So through this research journey, if anything you want from us, We are always there to handhold you and give the support so that we can achieve our objective as a country. And one more thing before I close this, my thing, the kind of situation we are in today's, every one of us has to be like Army of India. Each of us, whether he is belonging to army, working for defense forces or not, but each of us are basically have to work with like an army. Why? I'll tell you. See, many of your presentations was like that you are using the Google cloud or the cloud services to get your data trained and all those things. We need to go to the level where we should have our own technology for doing this all analysis also. Why Gemini? Why Anthropic? Why not something which is based on the completely sovereign AI platform of India on which we should do all those things, right? So that we are basically not having any kind of doubt that the models on which we are building the future of our country is not trained with something else, which at a very important point of time should not start misbehaving, right? So those are the things we need to see. And to do that one, if you want to have a complete sovereignty of the country, which primarily physically as of now our defense forces are looking after, but digital sovereignty, to achieve that is very, very important. And all of us who are working into the technology domain, we need to work as a single army to build that digital sovereignty in India. With that, thank you very much and wish you, all of you, a very best future and a very bright learning experience down the line as we research forward and trying to uncover many things out of the underwater domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakeshji. Really appreciate your comment, and we're grateful that you and your colleague could come down to Pune and meet us physically here, and we'll continue this discussion and continue the partnership going forward. Nishtha, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rakesh, for joining us. We'll now move on to the final segment of this session, and I would like to invite Ambassador Anup Kumar Mudgal to take over and share his thoughts with us. So Anup, sir, is a former Indian diplomat, and for MRC, he's a strategic advisor. So I'd like to call him for his concluding remarks now.
Oh, thank you, Nishtha. Thank you, Arnab, and everyone attending this conference, if I could call it like a conference. I have been talking on these issues for years now, right? And some of you must be wondering, I keep saying the same thing again and again in a different style, different approach. But the fact is that, when it comes to understanding the environment, we are just the beginners. So as a result, changing the direction of conversation is not easy, because only when we understand the environment better, probably we'll be able to take a minor change in the direction of the conversation. To these youngsters who made wonderful presentations, and they provide that hope that while the past might have a lot of holes in it, probably they will make sure that the future is better. Arnab, if you remember, I think a couple of years ago, when we were again commemorating the World Ocean Day, in fact, I remember the UN Secretary General made a very interesting comment. Now, I don't remember the exact language, but I'll paraphrase from my memory. What he said was that ocean or the environment as a whole, they have been serving humanity for ages. We are here because the environment helped us to be here. And we are looking at the environment again to support us into future so that we have better life. What he said was that, he said, we can trust the oceans to serve us, but can the oceans trust us? Now, that was a very profound statement coming from UNSC. And if you ask me really, should the oceans trust us? You know, I don't have a categorical response. Because you see what other aspects of environment they trusted us and how we have treated them. In fact, a few days ago on 5th of June, we had the World Environment Day. And we were discussing that with Nishtha. The land trusted us, yes, and what we have done to the land. You see, today almost 40% of the land is wasted because of human activity, yes. The forest trusted us and what we have done to them. 1/3 of the historic forest is completely lost. The rivers trusted us and what we have done to them. There are reports half the global rivers are in terrible condition. Biodiversity trusted us and what we have done to that. I would not go into details because I'm sure many of you would remember those details. And now we are asking the ocean to trust us. Yes. The parameters I mentioned just now, be it forest or mountains or rivers or land, we know them better. At least we claim we know them better. We can see what's happening there as a result of our action. If there we have not done a good job, what shall we do to the ocean? Where 90% of the ocean is not even familiar to us. In one of the conversations, Arnab, if you remember, you know, one part where I will try to take cover in this conversation is that to have a dialogue, you must understand the language of the party you are dealing with. When it comes to the environment as a partner, the language of the environment is very, very complicated. And we are not able to understand that language. As a result, we are not able to understand when the partner suffers. And by the time we get to know the partner is suffering, is too late. And the damage has already been done. And the reversal of damage to the environment is very, very difficult. Now, coming to the ocean, where is the ocean's language? How does ocean speak? Now, the ocean speaks underwater. Yes. And the ocean's language are chemical signals, physical signals, biological signals. There are so many signals, and they operate simultaneously at different frequencies, at different intensity. Now, combining all that and understanding what the ocean is trying to tell us is not easy. And that is where underwater domain awareness is absolutely essential and a starting point. You see, if you ask me, I have been dealing with these matters for many years now. You know, ocean is much bigger than the land. and it houses much bigger biodiversity than land. It provides tangible and intangible benefits to humanity, which you can't even imagine. We look at the tangible. We talk about blue economy. We talk about fisheries. We talk about shipping. We talk about energy, renewable energy or biotechnology or hydrocarbons. But I think what is more important is their intangible contribution. Very few people understand 1/3 of the carbon dioxide we produce as humans is absorbed by the oceans. And 90% of the heat. Now we are so worried about heat and global warming. 90% of the heat is absorbed by the oceans. They don't even tell you that I have done the service to you or a favor to you. Yes. The oxygen we breathe, every second breath we take is oxygen produced by the oceans. They host 90% of the planetary biodiversity. What are we doing to them? We are polluting the oceans. We are causing acidification of ocean waters. We are damaging the biodiversity. Friends, I'm sure you may not have heard of that. When we were damaging the land ecosystems beyond repair, there was a report, and this report was produced by Club of Rome, and the title of the report was Limits to Growth. If you get time, please read that report. And there was a revised version done a couple of years ago, in fact, where the Club of Rome came to this was really the cream of cream in terms of brain power, in fact. They came to the conclusion, if we do not look after the environment, our growth expectation would be limited because the environment will come back and will start hunting and hurting us. Yeah, last week there was a report that this year's offshoot is going to be July end. Can you imagine? We will exhaust the Earth's resources for the annual quota in July. And this has been happening for last almost 15, 20 years, which means every year we dig into the Mother Earth for 5 months beyond our quota. If we keep doing it, do you think the environment will stay silent? Now we are talking about global warming as an existential threat. There will be many more if we don't care. And to care, we must understand. And to understand, you must do what you people are doing, in fact. It is not an easy job. It's the heavy lifting, because oceans and environment are data heavy, in fact. It's a huge data. In fact, we can't even imagine the amount of data you need to interpret the language of the ocean and the language of the environment. But today, thanks to the mega data processing facilities that we have, thanks to the AI applications, I think we have the capacity not only to generate mega data, but also do its analysis in the right manner. But keep in mind, the ultimate goal is not to mistreat the environment. Whatever we are doing in terms of whatever we are doing, these are tools which should enable us so that we don't mistreat the environment. So the underlying goal must be understood very well. And I'm sure the youngsters understand that better, because it's their future which is at stake if the environment is not able to carry the burden of humanity. Yes, I was telling Nishtha the other day, environment doesn't care for conservation. Let it be hot or cold or whatever. Who needs it? We need it. If that is our requirement for survival, we should care for it. Yes. And now, as I was here listening to other speakers, in fact, when it comes to data collection on the oceans, it's not only the research vessels. Every vessel or boat which goes into the ocean can capture the data in real time and can pass it on to you. But we have to learn to work together. As long as we keep working in silos, a lot of opportunity will be lost, right? There are thousands of ships they keep flying. In fact, the other day I was reading a very interesting, anecdote, not really anecdote, but a story, because somebody was asking, how did we get to know that in last century or last 2 centuries or 3 centuries, how the Earth's temperature has behaved? That data was collected by the British Navy, in fact, and the commercial vessels. When they used to travel, it was a mandatory requirement that they will collect data on the ocean's environment. And that data tells us how we have behaved with the environment. I think we should not really let this opportunity go. Every vessel that goes to the ocean, they must collect data. And I was hearing the presentation before me. Today we have capacity of those sensors. Those sensors can collect the basic environmental data, be it the temperature, chemical variation, or even the biodiversity. Why not do it? Collect that data, converge into the facility that we have today for analyzing mega data, and then use those conclusions in developing what is called marine spatial planning. Because no blue economy will work without a proper, effective marine spatial planning. And for that, you need data, real-time data, and the capacity to analyze it, so that we are able to draw those red lines, which we should not cross. Right? We should not wait for the symptoms to emerge. We must know the reasons which are causing those symptoms. And that is where underwater domain awareness is absolutely essential. So with these words, I wish you all the best. And I'm sure you will be remembered in years and ages to come, that at least somebody tried to understand the complicated language of the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate your kind comments and your continued support and guidance to us. Really appreciate you joining us today, sir. Nishtha, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anup sir. It's always a pleasure to learn from you and to listen from you. So thank you so much once again for joining us and for your contribution for the World Environment Day message as well. Now we'll move on to our the concluding segment, wherein I'd like to call upon J. Catherine, who's the head of research at Maritime Research Centre, to deliver the closing remark. So I'll hand it over to Catherine to take over.
I think Catherine has a connectivity problem. So, okay, I think Nishtha, we can conclude. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and really appreciate your time and patience to give us an opportunity to present all the work we are doing, and we're trying to build the larger picture with these small efforts, and these micro efforts will try and build the mega picture that is required, or the macro picture that is required. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Anup sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody else, Rakesh ji and Shiva sir. Thank you so much. We'll close. Thank you very much. Just come out here. I think we'll give you a break tomorrow. But day after, please be on time, everybody. We have to visit the